thank you for being you. Thank you for being here. Here is the Suicide Prevention Show, where we are waking up the world. And to help us wake up the world and find our way back to ourselves is the Wayfinder, none other than Margi Haas. And I cannot wait to go on this journey with you, because what she is doing and what she has in store for us is going to be quite a journey. So here we go. Without further ado, Miss Margi, would you join me in the studio?
Oops.
Ah, there you are, almost. The camera was on, the camera was off. There's the camera on.
Hello, Jackie.
Hi, Margi. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Nice to see you again.
It's nice to see you again, too, Margi. We are going to have a wonderful discussion going on this topic of wayfinding. And earlier, there had been a conversation as wayfinding was sort of like the end of the spectrum. And I'm going, you know, they started with advocate and unifier and truth teller and then wayfinder. And I'm like, how perfect, because I'm going to be talking to the wayfinder later. And it was really, really wonderful. So that's with the perfect setup for what we're going to be talking about.
It sure is.
All right. Why do we need, I'm just going to go there. This is deep dive. Here we go. Why do we need help to find ourselves? I mean, it's like, didn't I just sort of leave myself right here?
Well, I think really that's a great question, Jackie, but I think really what we're talking about is not finding ourselves with a small o, but finding our real soul self. You know, what's our soul energy? What really gives us inspiration, the desire to go on? Because life is a challenge. Life can be very challenging, as we all know. So it's really how do we find that soul sense, that something that's greater than us, that inspires us to not give up. You know, the Dalai Lama said, never, ever, ever give up. And sometimes I have to even remind myself of that. Oh, because I really respect him. I mean, he's in his early 80s and he just keeps going and trucking and talking to groups all over the world every day. And he never gives up.
Never. That's true. So I'm curious, Margi, would you take us back on this journey? Your story is going to let people get to know you. So I'm really looking forward to this journey with you, because this difference between ourselves with a small o and ourselves with a capital O is worth exploring, because it's such a subtle difference. And I get the feeling, though, that it has made a significant difference in your world. So tell us how that happened.
Well, that's a profound question. I think, you know, finding our soul essence, or finding out really that we're eternal beings, is something that I hope all of us find out over time. You know, for me, I think it happened, you know, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, who was a brilliant coach on death and dying, I went to hear one of her workshops. And at some point, somebody was talking about, you know, talking about reincarnation. And it sounds, I mean, this is a long time ago. I won't say how long, because actually I don't remember, but the person started talking about it, and I thought, oh my gosh, that's right. We're reincarnated. I hadn't really given it thought. I think I was in my mid-30s or even younger. And I had done the S training, and everything sort of shifted. And I wondered if it was the training or me. So I went to hear Elizabeth Kubler-Ross for a weekend.
Okay, hold it. That was a lot of really nice sounding things that I want to deep dive into. One, you said EST training. EST?
Yes.
And so for people who don't know what EST means in the world, what is EST?
Oh, okay. So now I think it's called Landmark. It was a 2-weekend training where, it was sort of popularized. They won't let you go to the bathroom, which actually isn't true. But it was a way to learn more about ourselves. And because I spent so much time in the Far East, especially in Japan, to me, it was a lot like a Zen training. It was more about just telling the truth and learning more about we're powerful beings as human beings. So, and it transformed a lot of people's lives, including mine. It was just a safe place to learn that even though I was bored silly in my job and my relationship was kind of wonky, that I could change all that, or I could at least have a positive attitude about it. And my attitude was going to inform my life. So that's where I think we have to start with the idea of you, wayfinding yourself back to you. It's really you're finding your soul essence, Jackie. And as we get older, hopefully we start to realize that we're eternal beings, that death isn't the end. But you do want to die in a good state. You don't want to die from taking your own life, because that's just putting your life on a hold button. But if you die with a sense of at least peace, that shifts everything. I said so much here. I don't know.
That's okay, because what I really wanted people to understand the perspective that you're coming from. And we live in a world of shortcuts. So EST or EST, it had a meaning. And of course, now you're right. I've forgotten that it rebranded as Landmark, which is easier for people to understand than the acronym. The power of understanding that attitude informs life. You said things changed for you, that things shifted. How, come on, tell me how did you know? I mean, what was the observable third party that something had changed?
Well, that's a good question, but it's also subtle. It was really a process. I mean, I remember in the S training, the first weekend, they said, you can set your alarm to come back tomorrow, because they ran till 2 or 3 in the morning in Manhattan. But they told us how to set our alarms by visualizing a big clock and just setting it in our mind. And so it started with that kind of thing, and to realize, and I did it and it worked. I set an alarm as a backup, but I didn't need it. So it's sort of a process, learning that we're not our limitations. And that's what my work is really about, is working with people on, reach past your limitations and unlock your cosmic perspective, by which I simply mean operate as though you are eternal, operate as though you can transform, you can change. And yes, circumstances can be awfully difficult. The pandemic has made all of us realize, oh my gosh, the restraints, the lack of relationships face to face. But still, our attitude is just everything. And I think that's a spiritual practice. That's something that I don't know that I could have articulated it then, but that was a lot what all of these powerful transformational experiences, the high spiritual teachers are really telling you, change your mood, change your life. You gotta focus on the positive. And that is a practice for every single one of us. And I don't mean this sitting here glibly saying, hey, just do it. It's a practice. It's like meditation. All right. I went for a walk to center myself before tonight, and I was thinking something negative about somebody. And I thought, no, how can I rephrase that? Why am I walking around thinking blah, 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 negative about that person? That's, or about myself. So how can I rephrase that? But I had to consciously go, wait, now this is not, practice what you preach. Practice what I preach.
There you go. It's one of those things that we have some expectations that says, oh, I've been working through this. I've worked through, I've let go, I've peeled back layers, I've even forgiven. Why am I still buying t-shirts? Yeah. Yeah, it's true that we are creatures of habit.
Yes. So, and when we go down those dark tunnels or look at what's wrong, and you could say, well, things are really kind of wrong right now. I have a client where, oh my gosh, the challenges she faces between her two sick, negative mood parents. But, you can still change your attitude.
Attitude's about the only thing I think we can change.
Yes.
We agree. We get, but we don't get permission to change our attitude when we're growing up. We get told to do it, but not how to do it. Yeah. Change your attitude, young lady. Okay. So what's step one? Yeah. Okay. So what's step one? If somebody wants to change their attitude, if they want to have beyond awareness, because you have to start with, you were aware of the fact you were thinking negatively about someone.
Yeah.
So someone who's just starting the journey back to themselves, or when you were just starting the journey back to yourself, you started with a 2-day weekend. What are other options?
So, there are various things you can do. First of all, start to kind of sneak in on your own chatter. What am I saying? Like, I was just walking, looking at birds, which I love to do. And suddenly I noticed I was in this, I was already in this negative judgment about myself and this other person. And, so I had to first, wait a minute, stop. This is not, I don't want to go there. It's done. I screwed up, but I'm done. So then recast the whole thing. But there are other things we can do to stop the chatter. One is to, let's see. In fact, there's a book called Chatter that just came out by Ethan Kross, spelled with a K. And he suggests 3 interesting ways that, to shift our perspective. And one of them is what I was doing, get out in nature. And it's interesting. This has been scientifically proven to shift your brain, shift your chemistry. So it's not just sort of making it up. It shifts your body. It shifts your mindset. But if you shift your body, you shift your mindset. And for me also, and this is something else he suggests, look at things that give you, inspire awe in you. And for me, birding, being outside in nature, and I'm looking at these beautiful swallowtail kites that have a nest in my neighborhood. And look today, like the female on one of the nests had spread herself out, kind of bigger over the nest. And I thought, I think there may be babies that have just hatched there. And but I went to awe.
Oh, I can see it in your face.
She looks so protective and spread out like that. It was touching, but it was also, then I started thinking about, oh my gosh, how do they get here? They go all the way to South America for 6 months to Brazil, and then they fly over the Gulf, come back to the same exact nest from last year.
Wow.
And hopefully her mate comes back too. They don't even fly together. So I'm just thinking about all these awe-inspiring things. They're bigger than I am. And I forget about my silly blah, 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 negative things. So I'm shifting the place I'm in. And, sometimes, it's just any kind of what they would call in therapy is pattern interrupt. I was talking to a client over the weekend who was really upset with her family situation. And I said, can you get outside? Just get outside, and get out and tell me if the stars are there. What's the moon look like? And that's an interruption in the negativity within the house. And anything, watching an ant cross the floor or get it off the counter without killing it. And what's an ant doing in the house? Well, how did it get in there? But we can think about, from the ant's perspective, what does it see? It's a big world in this kitchen. And then another thing he suggests, and I know this is more challenging perhaps, but he says, organize things, declutter. And I'm thinking, well, I could do my sock drawer, or just consciously set out things that are a mess. Like my desk, I like to sort of have a mess, but then I also go, whoa, and just organizing makes me feel different. It shifts my perspective. That may seem sort of superficial, but it's putting a sense of order in the chaos, which seems to be ever present, right? I see you're laughing. So it's just always there.
I'm laughing because for years I talk with my clients about if you're struggling with chaotic thoughts, go clean out a closet.
Yeah.
And one of the ways you'll know that you're having an impact on your mindset, that it's actually starting to work, is that you will find that you are cleaning out a closet without having to think about it. You'll be finding that you're organizing things. So there's the organizing that we do consciously to help bring the mind into alignment. And then there's the organizing that starts happening once the mind is in alignment. Because yes. I think it's inertia. Order wants order.
Yes. And that changes mindset and helps us with the ever-present challenge or training of staying positive. And I think that's a spiritual practice. And I'm sad to say that media seems awfully committed to the latest scary, creepy thought, or, so if you're watching the news, or if I'm watching the news, then I need to think, what's a better thought? Because it really, we need to stay focused on the positive.
All right, so let's just go there, because there is so much controversy around, but you're not being realistic. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it's like somebody said, if you're going to focus on the positive, that means you're not going to watch the news. And if you're not going to watch the news, that means you're disconnected from reality. So let's go ahead and give them an answer, Margi.
All right. So first of all, what is reality? But I don't mean this glibly. Like, okay. What is reality? Is it out there? Is it out there? Yeah, you could say, I'm talking to you, you're real, I'm real. But what's really real? I mean, I'm not being like making a Zen riddle out of this. Like, you can't find emotions. If you dissect somebody, you can't find their emotions. You can't find their thinking. So maybe the real world is inside, is our soul, is our eternal being. So if we start really listening for, if soul and eternal find overwhelming to you, then maybe just go in or start watching your energy. Is it going up when I'm watching this? Is it going down when I'm watching this? Or is it like, it's neither good nor bad?
So we can become aware of the impact it has on us.
Absolutely. And where does that come from? It comes from tracking energy within us. The real world is within us. And it looks like even new physics seems to really strongly suggest that I'm projecting you, the TV, the Zoom. My whole world is a projection from inside me. And so if people say, hey, you're not facing the real world, they could, you could always say, well, what's real? And they might go, oh, lady, and then probably it's good to just walk away because they're not on the same wavelength.
Well, and most of us are not on the same wavelength. I mean, that's just sort of in and of itself. But understanding that we are not bound by convention. So the question is it a good idea to work towards being able to watch the news with equanimity? We are staying equal so that we don't lose touch with the bigger world? Or is it okay to just walk away from all of them?
I think everybody has to make their own decision about that. But to me, the news is not the bigger world. And I'm afraid I'm old enough to say that news used to be different. If we want to talk about news on TV, where both sides were represented. I mean, I remember when Eisenhower was in an election with Adlai Stevenson. My family were clear they were voting for Eisenhower, but we weren't vilifying the opposition. He was a cool guy, was really smart and elegant, and he was respected and respectful. So now I think we take one side of things. But, when it comes to the news, personally, I don't watch it. First of all, I can get enough news on the computer, but even then, I try to be positive, but I also try to go, wait a minute. Is this, I mean, we're kind of saturated. We're overloaded with news. So
we are.
What's really important for us to know? Well, I think we could all agree if we're on the computer, the internet, we can usually find out really quickly. I mean, if there's something really important, like a storm coming up, I love our local network here in Sarasota. If there's a possibility of a tornado, then I'm on the news because it could come down my street and that I need to take precautions. So, but otherwise, I follow my energy. Most of the time, the TV is off.
Well, I'm aware with that. I'm all on board with that. Having grown up in households with a TV on, having had husbands who had the TV on all the time, when I ended up living alone, I had moved, and one day my computer went out. And I'm like, okay, so I don't know if it's my computer or if it's the internet. It's the cable. So I went into the living room and turned on the TV to see if the cable was working. And that's when I realized that I had never hooked it up. I'd lived there over 2 months. The cable was still hanging. And I was like, okay, that's not going to help me. The power of being in control of what images come into my mind. This is where I've been spending a lot of time, especially in these last few months. And it's like another level of control to be able to say, you don't get to choose what comes into my eyes. That's been a game changer for me. For people who are wanting to make a positive change, what else can they do beyond taking the control over what's coming in through their eyes? What's another simple thing they can do?
Well, I think it really does come back to think of things that are greater than you are, that inspire you. I'm not sure of the exact terminology, but there was a SpaceX. They sent, 4 or 6 astronauts from Florida, here in Florida, on the Space Coast. They sent them to, now I'm forgetting the name, but the circulating space station. And they launched, I think it was Wednesday or Thursday. And a friend of mine took his 90-year-old dad who'd never seen it, and they had a tent. He found a cool place right off the beach, away from the crowds. To photograph it, but also to show him what it was like. And there was his photos were filled with a sense of wonder. And I was like awe-inspired. It's like, ooh, I never really thought I necessarily wanted to go see it, but when I saw his photos, and it sounds so silly to say, but even after the rocket had taken off, there was this cool, almost like figure eight sign of Omega in the sky from the exhaust. So like, that's a sense of wonder. And it's greater than I am. I wasn't even there, but the photos evoked the sense of wonder. And I think that sense of something bigger than we are, for a lot of people, that could be religion, but it could also be spirituality. And also a sense of, really starting to listen. Do we die when we die, or is that it? Or what could give us a sense of maybe we're eternal beings and we're just having these lifetimes, but they say, and I think I've done enough studying and thinking that they say, when you die, your consciousness goes on, which means you're still thinking, you're still, I mean, if you don't have a body, think about that. But it seems like consciousness goes on. In fact, consciousness may be the ground for everything. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, it's hard for me to even get a sense of that. But it's amazing to me. Wow, you mean we're all from consciousness? That's plants, animals, the lizard on the wall, the ant in the kitchen, and plants. The whole thing is consciousness. And what does that even mean? But that comes back to wonder. That's the cosmic perspective. And I think even if I keep thinking about this American Indian story. His name was Sequoia Truthblood, I think was his name. And he spent a lot of time in jail. And it was a very evolved man. I mean, it sounds contradictory, but it's a long story. And I think he's died now, or left this plane of consciousness. But he talks about, he'd done enough study that by the time he was put in solitary confinement for a year, that it was the greatest gift he'd ever had. He really had to look in. And, when he got out of jail, he spent his whole life talking to people of all ilk, like blacks, whites, Indians, and how they could live in harmony. And really walking his talk and taking care of the prisoners, going back and taking care of them once he was free. I mean, so what is being imprisoned? I think being in negative thoughts, we can always change our attitude. And believe you me, sometimes it's like, I don't want to hear what you're saying. I like my negative mood. Really? Margie, get off it. I like it for a while until things, because I think we create our reality. So then if I'm really grumpy, the postman throws, my letter on the floor, on the ground, and it gets wet, and the dogs come in sopping wet, and they're not properly dried off, and it's just a horrible day. So, what we focus on, we manifest. So why not, again, it's a practice. Focus on the positive.
The simplistic nature of wonder. There was a TV show once called The Wonder Years. It was this period of time in our lives that we are still carefree as kids. We haven't hit high school. We're not thinking of college and growing up and all of that mature stuff, the adult stuff. And we're old enough to have a sort of more of a self-awareness. And the kid who played the lead character in this, they did an episode about the moon landing, that occurred during the moon landing, and how his watching the moon landing, all of a sudden picking up the phone and calling the girl from class who he wanted to get to know better, didn't seem like such a big, hairy, scary deal. And that really stuck with me, because we're talking about reclaiming our ability to have perspective.
Yes, we are.
And, yes, we can take it all the way to, the Buddhist, make me one with everything, or I am one with everything. But even just pulling it, just moving it a little bit from where we are, can give us back this sense of wonder, give us back some perspective that maybe what we've been concerned about is not such a big, hairy, scary deal.
And even if it is, I think our attitude just informs so much of what we end up manifesting.
So maybe that's a good topic for us to go off in. We'll go off on this tangent of manifesting, what it is, what it isn't, and why it seems like some people have mastered manifesting and some people, no matter what they do, that's not showing up the way they want it to. So there we go. Where angels fear to tread, Margie. Let's go.
So again, I really think it's focusing on what we want and then taking action.
The challenge with and I love the answer. It's incredibly simple. And what comes up for me is, do you have a step-by-step for focus?
Do I?
Uh-huh. I felt like I was back in Sunday school there for a minute. Can I have something to testify?
No, I think, I think from all that, in my own experience and watching other people, the more if you're clear on what you want and you focus on it and you nourish the images of it and you get a feeling of how it would be, and then you gather your courage and you take action. And also not to worry so much about, I know I get hung up in, oh my God, I haven't talked to this person in 20 years. What are they going to think? And it's like, yeah, well, maybe they'll like it. Maybe they won't. Maybe they'll say, I can't get past the secretary. So, but it's also maybe coming back to not taking ourselves too seriously, even though I'm saying it may sound contradictory that I think the more we're clear and focused on what we want and nourish that as an idea and then take action accordingly.
There we go. I think that's really key, because we can take all kinds of busy action, ineffective action, or the actions we think we should do.
Right.
And then we get should on by the results. What if we can give people an easy way, Margie? Well, actually you did. So I'm going to spill the beans here, because what you have created, which is accessible to anyone who is on Facebook, this journey into Wonderland, this journey into this sense of wonder. So I love that it is there. And the links will be put in the chat in just a minute. The value of reclaiming the sense of wonder. When we focus on the positive, when we focus on what it is that we want, the odds of us getting more of what we want go up dramatically. And there's just so much empirical evidence to cover that. What's the challenge? What's going on in the world that so many people are so unhappy? And how do we help? Because, as far as I'm concerned, this is the purest form of suicide prevention. This is something anybody can do everywhere it doesn't cost anything. You don't
right.
need it. You don't need an app. There's no app for this.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think it's staying positive is a high discipline. Again, it's a spiritual practice. But I think also learning and exploring and studying, to me, are part of it. So in my Facebook group, to which I invite everybody, it's my private Facebook group, Wayfinding the Cosmos, I really want to share with people, hey, you can explore, you can study, you can learn amazing new things to create a sense of awe. But also, I work a lot with people that have trauma, and I I really am committed to their overcoming their trauma. So I do a lot of counseling with people that have faced pretty horrendous things. And I'll do whatever it takes. But it's always a soul journey. In other words, exploring how has this stopped me? Or what was the gift in this horrendous experience? But it's also working with people, don't stop. Even if it seems really challenging, seek help. And if it's really hard to seek help, just focus on what you need comes to you. Because again, I think our world comes from within us. So if we're focusing on there's nobody out there, oh my God, this is pointless, that's the way it will be. And this is, I don't mean this glibly. I'm not saying I'm this queen of virtue here. I mean, I really have to sneak up on myself and go, Margi, that's not an appropriate thing to say. What the heck were you doing there? But I also have to then forgive myself, move on. And here I'm supposed to be teaching other people about this, but life is like that, we have to, but we have to at least find the better thought.
There we go.
The better action.
Yeah, there's been some really good books. I mean, the Abraham Hicks, Asking It Is Given. And it's like, what's the next highest thought?
Yeah.
And I've worked with a book called The Cortex Circuit, and it has a different hierarchy of emotions. As a matter of fact, I have it posted on my wall, because the ability to go, where am I? And what's the next highest thought? And in the cortex circuit, in the middle, from the constricting emotions to the expanding emotions, in the middle, they put courage.
Yes.
Which I had never thought of as being the pivot point. It's not that it's an expanding emotion. It's this neutral pivot point in that system.
Wow, cortex circuit. That sounds really interesting, because I'm so glad you mentioned that, because I think the importance of courage, bravery, we don't talk so much about that anymore. And I think that's what the Dalai Lama means when he says, never, ever, ever give up. I keep that by my bed in a frame, the quote that he has there. But he's really saying, gather your courage, you can get through this. And we all, he had amazing challenges. He left his country, all his goodies as a high being, he had all these fabulous toys, and oh my gosh.
Oh, I understand. It's an amazing story, because he's like, I am a simple soldier. Yeah. He became very simple.
Yes.
To be able to come into the exile that he's been in ever since. So without getting on the political side of it, the reality is that he was able to release any attachment to the life that he had been raised in.
Right.
In order to fulfill whatever he saw as his purpose in this world. The fact that he was raised with a sense of purpose.
Yes.
I think that's one of the things that somehow are, as human beings, I don't know if we're evolving into a sense of purpose, and we're just starting to be aware that it could be a life-saving, way to live, or if we used to have it and somehow we lost it, in whether it's the industrial age or the information age or the whatever age. And I really don't need to know, but I'm curious. What do you think?
About the sense of purpose? Well,
yeah,
I actually think it's sort of like, they talk about the Holy Grail and the knight looking for the Holy Grail. Well, maybe the Holy Grail, at least now, not maybe, I think it is finding one's unique sense of purpose. And as I've been studying in human design, which is a discipline for a long time, which specifically focuses on everyone finding their unique purpose. And in fact, anybody who wants to come to my website, if you contact me, I'm happy to do a coaching session on what is your unique purpose.
Ooh,
I think it's...
Sign me up.
I'll do that for you.
Yeah, sign me up. Because I call August the 3rd, 2019, the day my purpose tapped me on my shoulder. Because that's the day that my daughter Stephanie delivered the 7-minute talk where she broke over 20 years of silence around her multiple suicide attempts. And that 7-minute talk, and I just did this timeline last night for my team. That 7-minute talk is what eventually led to me taking a TEDx stage and on this topic just a few months ago. So it was that day. I was totally unprepared for it, totally blindsided by it. I was not running a spiritual retreat or anything on this topic. I was teaching entrepreneurial women how to sell themselves on themselves and deliver talks. Sales from the inside out, messages that matter. That was my entire focus. And boom. Now, the shift took about a year before I finally realized that, okay, I'm doing this now, and I'm not doing the entrepreneurial work. I'm shifting more and more into this realm.
Right.
And then this year, the TEDx stage, something changed. And I still have no clue what my purpose is, but I know that the journey to deliver the talk on Have the Talk to End Teen Suicide, or to stop teen suicide, the journey grew something. But I still have no idea what my purpose is. I know that there is a purpose to make suicide a thing of the past, especially teen suicide.
Well, I think what you're doing is you're following your unique energy. You're responding to what's showing up in your own family, in your own surround. And we can claim purpose, but you could have ignored it. You could have done many other things.
Oh, trust me, if she had broken that silence anyway, other than the way she did it publicly at my own event, I probably would have found a way to ignore it, because I'd been ignoring it for decades.
Well, I'm so touched by your willingness to be frank about this. I'm very moved because I'm touched by her need to make a public cry for help, and I'm also very touched by your response. And you have a very powerful aura, and you can just take action. You can manifest right away when you are committed. And that's true for everybody. People have different ways they're going to do it. If they're not you, they're not me. I have a different human design. And everybody is extremely unique in that regard. But again, if people want to come to my Facebook group, Wayfinding the Cosmos, contact me on Messenger. I'm happy to talk more about how you find your purpose. And within that, even though we're all so unique, Jackie, we also each have so much creativity. Like, look at what you've done with this. It's just amazing that you've done the TEDx talks. You do these periodic, really big events, and so many people are becoming much more aware. It's awesome. So yes, we're born with specific purposes, but also even within that, we can all seize the day in our own way. And if you don't know your sense of purpose, follow your energy. If your energy's going up, take that first step. If your daughter makes that kind of announcement, once you recover from the shock of it or the...
Oh yeah, my energy went down along with all the blood in my face. Yeah, because I'd lived through her multiple suicide attempts, but I didn't know that she was going to be talking about suicide at my event.
That's
especially not her story. So it's, as a matter of fact, that story is what I ended up sharing on the TEDx stage, which is, if you had asked me, a year ago, would I ever? I would have said no. Yeah.
But it's also seizing your purpose, or really not even talking about a purpose, like it's the only purpose you can have. But what's really impressive is that once you're confronted with a challenge, you were brave. We're talking about bravery here. You were brave, you seized the day, and you figured the way to publicly counteract that with your bravery was to do a TEDx talk.
Well, it didn't start out that way. It didn't start out with I was going to do a TEDx talk. I mean, it started out with how can I do something with this that then I can still hide? You know, I mean, we published an anthology. Over 20 people got together, sent in their stories. We put this together really fast and published this book and worked to get it in the hands of teens to help them break the silence and start talking about suicide. It was a way of getting things started, and I thought that's all it was going to be. And it might have stayed there, except that one of my mentors said, Jackie, take a TEDx stage on this topic. You know, take how to stop teen suicide into the world. And I would never have done it otherwise if I had not been specifically directed and guided to do that, because it was never on my mind to do a TEDx stage. I like really small groups. Yeah.
But look at what you've done. You've summoned your courage, you followed your energy. And a lot of us end up in crises that when we're in crises, they're already there. It isn't like I'm going to have a crisis. Or you already are in one, and you can take action or not. So you gathered your courage. And I'm sure over that period, you've had to focus over and over again on positive thoughts and what am I thinking and correct them. But also you must have experienced a sense of awe, a sense of wonder, even in the midst of the challenge.
When resources started showing up without me asking, without
absolutely.
me telling even.
And you're showing the world how to counteract this. So you're focused on more than your little self. So you're being a high-minded example, of cosmic transformation.
Oh, wow.
But that's way, then we live and die in a sense of peace and joy.
That's an interesting place to be. And so that's the lesson of our session, is that when you are consciously aware, consciously doing what you can to control your thinking, imagining the energy that moving you up or down and taking action accordingly.
Yes.
That the outcome of that is living in a place of peace and joy, no matter what's going on around you.
Amen.
There you go. That's what I'm taking away from this session. So there we go.
And please come in, and I think you're already on my Wayfinding the Cosmos.
Oh, I am. When you first announced it, I joined it. So I was in the group from the very beginning. So the link is in the chat. Come and join, and we'll
continue this exciting conversation, these exciting conversations. Thank you so much.
Oh, Margi, I am so delighted that you joined and that you are on this journey that you're on and sharing it with so many other people. Thank you very much for being you.
And you being you, this is really wonderful. We can celebrate in this positive place. Thank you so much.
You're very, very welcome, Margi.